Hi, everybody. Jason Warner. I'm one of the co-founders of Poolside. Prior to this, I was the CTO at GitHub for 4 years. So 2 years pre-acquisition by Microsoft, and then 2 years post. Before that was a similar role at Heroku, which is a platform as a service now owned by Salesforce. And before that, similar role at Canonical, the people who make Ubuntu Linux. We're building foundation models specifically for software development. So the entire umbrella category of software development, as well as middleware and all of the supporting tooling around it, and applications. So the editor extensions inside of Visual Studio Code, IntelliJ, Eclipse, Visual Studio itself, and all of those sorts of things. We're an AGI company. We're a frontier AI company as well, but we're going to push through the boundaries to get to AGI via software.
Warner co-founded Poolside with ISO Kant, who previous to Poolside had built one of the first intelligent layers for software development using neural networks.
So what is the intersection of neural nets and SDLC then?
As the model capabilities expand, a lot of the SDLC is going to collapse into models. There's basically two things that the software development lifecycle largely does. One is a gating function. So to advance to the next step towards production, you must go through a gate. You must adhere to some principle or some practice or be blessed to go through it. And the other is, particularly in large enterprises, but largely it kind of all boils down to this, is a little bit like policy shaping, like we do this here this way, so making sure that things are adhered to. And all of those things are things that can make their way into neural networks. And so as you write code, you can do things more in a more standardized fashion at the moment of creation as opposed to later in the process.
Poolside's approach is different compared to its peers, especially the way that they create synthetic data, embed other models, and keep all the data inside the enterprise.
So a lot of general purpose models would be what I call quantity data shops. They are just going to try to amass as much data as possible. I would call us a quality data shop. We filter to the highest quality data sets that go into our models. That's one. Two, we've actually removed what we would consider non-business friendly license types from the pre-training data. So a lot of concerns that enterprise have is on the generative nature of non-business friendly license types, the virality nature of those license types. So we've removed them from the training data so that whenever you're doing code assist or any sort of code completions or generative nature, there is no overlap with viral license type exposure. And the third is we install inside an environment, so inside the enterprise, we do fine tune and RAG all of that information, but we never see that data coming back to us. So it is that's the customer's data. We have no right to ask for that to come back to us. And the reason why we can do that is because of a technique that we have that allows us to generate so much synthetic data on our side that we can still expand our model's capabilities. We effectively get open source projects to run inside of our massive runtime environment, and we use Poolside to solve tasks, reward itself on solving tasks inside that environment. And from that, a lot of synthetic data comes out. This is patterned after AlphaGo, if you're familiar with that from DeepMind in 2016. It is how DeepMind took Go and made it a superhuman Go player. It's very similar to what we're doing.
How does it provide distinction with your peers?
Well, so the first and foremost is that it allows us a different go-to-market motion. So a lot of the security concerns that you were mentioning before is that if somebody is building an AI application and they're going to use a general purpose model hosted by somebody else, a lot of the context, the code context, is going to go over the wire. So that's going to go back to somebody else. We're going to say, no, that's never going to leave your VPC premise or your network boundary, where that sits inside your environment. And the other is it allows us to advance the model's capabilities in very specific fundamental ways. So our belief, this has nothing to do with customers at the moment, but our belief in this is that we will scale towards AGI, whatever fuzzy term we want to call AGI at the moment, but we will scale towards that faster than our contemporaries who are on the general purpose side, because they effectively have one scaling boundary, which is the compute cluster size. We have two. We have compute cluster size, and we can generate more data. And so we can generate our way into this.
Poolside signed an agreement to work as a first-party offering in AWS. That's a pretty big deal. It means where AWS is, Poolside can go too.
Poolside looks like any other native AWS service, S3, EC2, whatever it be. So that means from a customer perspective, a customer can buy Poolside by burning down its AWS commit credits, which is a really big deal for a startup like ours. And it also means that we're on AWS paper, so MSAs and all those sorts of clauses. So if a customer is already familiar with AWS, they can buy Poolside under the exact same structure as they would any other AWS service. So again, big deal for us. What it also means is that we are anywhere AWS is. So you can install inside any AWS infrastructure.
But what about the trade-offs?
So our focus on software is the idea that we don't live in an infinite world.
Yeah.
So by focusing here, we've already started on that decision because we only have so much energy, we only have so much compute, we only have so much data. So we've decided to spend our energy focusing on software. The further discrete things are about what matters and what doesn't. And so in my view, what we have to do is you have to push the model capabilities. And as you push the model capabilities far, you're going to get a lot more expansive use of artificial intelligence in software. And then the other thing that matters for usage is the marriage of these models with context. And I believe that as you put these things inside large enterprises, fine-tuned on their data, in the context, you have this new primitive, a new substrate that will exist inside these enterprises, upon which you can build all these other things inside the enterprises themselves. And then broadly speaking, in the world, what you'll end up with is these intelligence layers. Anthropic and OpenAI being general purpose intelligence layers, Tesla being a full self-driving intelligence layer of robotics and genomics, will be the software intelligence layer for the world.